Welcome, I'm Gary Kopp. I'm here with Pete Lucido, your Lansing legislator, and we're shooting Lucido number 14. We've got 14 one-half-hour shows already done, Pete. So I've actually talked to a third person today who actually said that they've seen this. So I know there's at least 3 people. So we're getting the word out.
It's getting out.
It's getting out. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the number one thing that's on everybody's mind. What the heck is going on with roads? I know it finally came out of the Senate, came back to the House. What's it look like?
Okay, well, we passed the bills out of the House, went to Senate. Senate took it, blended it a little differently. Instead of the registration fee being $400 million, they cut that in half and made it $200 million, which is a 20% flat increase across the board tax. Flat increase across the board tax. They call it a fee, it's a tax. Don't care how you want to say it. 20% is 20% of what the registration you paid last year. You're going to see you're going to pay 20% more.
Okay.
Let's go to the other one, the gas tax. We, the House, went ahead and had come out about 3.5% increase. Went to Senate. Senate said, no, we're going to take down the registration fees and increase the tax on the gas, both regular and diesel. So regular is about 7.3. They say round it up at 7.5% tax, and diesel's at about 9.5. That being said, it was a package that was signed by the governor already. It's out there. It just happened.
When did it happen?
Just this last week.
Really? So it's a done deal.
It's a done deal.
Oh, wow.
And what's going to happen now is it'll be implemented, they call it immediate effect. You're going to see prices going up because of the tax and the registration going up. I can only tell you this. I was a no on both of the plans. I didn't believe in any of it. I still don't today. Prop 1 was a very clear message the voters sent. It was no, no, no. And I went no, no, no with the registration and the gas increase. Unfortunately, it took 54 to pass it, and it was right there, 54 votes.
54 votes.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
So the thing that I read here is it said revenue comes from 3 primary sources. 1, increased the motor fuel taxes.
Correct.
2 was the higher vehicle registration.
Correct.
And 3, new earmarks of existing income tax revenues for roads, reducing the state's general fund by $600 million annually once the earmarks are fully phased in. Now, the $600 is, or $600 million, I wish it was $600.
I do too.
Is coming out of the state's bank account, right?
Exactly. And you know what? And this is poor planning the way I see it. The reason why is you're assuming that we're always going to have $600 million in a general fund.
Right.
But if we have something like a disaster that just happened in Flint, we're using general funds to patch up those extreme circumstances. Wrong. We can't plan and budget properly this way because we really don't know with the old infrastructures that we have in this state, what's going to go next.
Sure.
So to be fiscally responsible and to be somewhat conservative, why don't you spend only that which you need when you have it? They're spending money that they don't even have before they get it. I'm a no on this. This is not my idea of representing people. It's an idea of the if come. If it's there, then it comes. If it doesn't, then we got to rebalance everything and re-legislate, and that's not what I'm about.
Yeah. Well, it also does say that, and this is the state of Michigan, their own information, it says that in 2019, they're only taking $150 million out of the budget, and then you don't get to the full 600 until 2021, right?
21, right, Gary. What they're doing is they're ramping it up. So 150 million, then 250 million, and then by 21 we're at about 600 million with the perspective or the objective of the revenue generated from the gas tax, diesel tax, as well as the registration. Putting them both together, 2021 should have the 1.2 going forward.
Right.
Does it look like that could happen? Maybe. Does it look like that's the way you do accounting? Not in my eyes, it don't. No.
And at the end of the day, if there was no new money going into the state general fund, you're taking 150 million, 325 million, 600 million.
Call it 600 million at the end of the day.
At the end, but you're taking you're over $1 billion out of the general fund. I haven't heard anything that says, here's how we're going to put the money back.
Yeah.
So something's going to fall off the table, or else you guys have got
Whoa,
something in the back.
Whoa, whoa,
You
whoa,
got a
whoa,
little
whoa,
bird
whoa,
saying, hey, we still got 5 years, so we're going to raise some other taxes.
Before we
Huh?
say you guys, this guy was a no. So
I hear
this
you.
guy was not. This is not the way to do things. No way.
I'm just a little bit skeptical that you're going to pull $1 billion out of the general fund without a way to put it back. That's
I still like my
scary.
idea about using existing funds from MCCA, just the interest, but that didn't get anybody's attention other than the voters that said no.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are the ones we should have been taking care of and should be always looking after.
Hopefully that. Well, I'm sure that MCCA thing, if it didn't do anything else, at
It
least
opened the eyes of the voters.
Yeah, it raised awareness of people that there's something going on out there, and there's also this uninsured motorist fee, which I know you're working on in
Right
terms
now.
of, and I want to get some update. Maybe if we have time later on at the end of the show, we can go into that and you can give us a status on what's happening with that. So
Sure.
I think hopefully that explains everything in terms of the roads. It sounds like it's a done deal. Like it or not, we're gonna do it, right?
One thing I can say, and we'll cut this discussion, at least our roads are going to get saved. We're going to avoid some possible complications for the citizens of this great state. And let's face it, with that being said, I still want to work on the truck weight because
Yeah.
those that are using the road, making money for those roads, should be paying and investing more into those roads. And they're not. It's not. It's just like the corporations that want educated people, but they don't want to pay for the educated people.
Yeah, right. One of the other things that, and we've talked about this before, was the new warranties
Yes.
and the bid processes and all that stuff. So that pretty much stayed in as part of the bill, right?
I was 100% yes on
Yeah,
those.
sure.
Warranties are more important. When we, as taxpayers, when we as townships or villages have skin in the game, we should have an RFP on every road, and we should be a part of the decision making.
Right.
Yes.
No, I agree. All right, identity theft. We talked a little bit about this before. You've got a couple events coming up on Tuesday the 17th
Right.
and Wednesday the 18th. Give us a download on that again.
I'm going to tell all the viewers out there, Tuesday, the November 17th from 7 to 9 in Washington Township, in the Township Hall, we are having an identity theft. That will have the people from the Attorney General's office. We'll also have law enforcement officials locally from Romeo and also from the Sheriff's Department, all coming together doing like a collaboration about what it is the viewers need to know to protect themselves, their families, seniors especially. This is very important. It's a do not miss. It is a must attend to make sure that you understand what's going to happen to you if you give certain information or somebody comes to your mailbox or you leave a package on the door. The next day, so from Tuesday, November 17th in Washington, we're bringing the show back on the road and coming into Shelby Township from 7 to 9 on Wednesday, November 18th, just the next day, here in Shelby Township. And we're going to do it here in the Shelby Township Municipal Hall, where they have the board meetings. And I'm going to tell
it's in the hall.
Yeah.
Okay, not in the senior center.
No,
this
it's
time.
in
Okay.
the hall. And
Okay.
I want to tell everybody, look, this is a do not miss. Let's get going because we got local law enforcement as well as the Attorney General's office coming back over here. This is something that's necessary for the holidays, and in the spirit of the holidays, do not fall prey this holiday.
There you go. Nice little. It's almost like cookies and coffee with Pete, right? Kind of.
we're doing that
little ring
still,
to it.
too.
Yeah, we're still doing it, and we've got to talk about that too. But we'll talk about that in the next segment.
Sure.
Because we've got a date change on that for everybody who's
do.
interested in coming to that. So, stay tuned. We're going to take a short break now. We'll be right back. I'm here with Pete Lucido, your Lansing legislator.
Nano, is everything okay in there?
Just a minute, Grandma.
And I'm Gary Kopp. I'm here with Pete Lucido. Pete, let's talk about the date change. I understand we had a date change for our cookies and coffee and conversation with Pete.
We do. Monday, November 16th was the scheduled date. It is out there in the calendar that way, but it has to be changed because of the schedule change and a conflict. So we're moving it from Monday, November 16th to the following Monday, November 23rd. So it's just, don't come on the 16th of November, it's a Monday. Come the following following Monday, November
Monday.
23rd,
23rd.
same time, 9 to 10:30, same place here in the Shelby Township Senior Center, and we will have coffee, cookies, and conversation.
Okay.
It's free. Come on in. We'll talk about and anything you need to talk about to help the citizens here in the 36th District have their voice heard up in Lansing.
I'm sure most of the people probably have a bundle of questions about how this road tax thing is going to impact them. So
Bring your questions. I'll hopefully have handouts for everybody by
good.
then that they can take with them, and then they can actually drill down more
Yeah.
and not just the brief conversation today on the show.
yeah, good.
Okay?
So that's the 23rd here at Shelby instead of the 16th at Shelby.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. All right, good. You probably have seen my hat here. I wanted to talk a little bit about Veterans Day because I know you attended an event here in Shelby yesterday. I want to talk about veterans. As you can see, this is just to give you a little bit of history about myself. This is my drill sergeant hat. I earned this back in 1972 when I had an opportunity to, one, either be drafted or two, enlist. So I enlisted. And after a long, strenuous basic training, advanced infantry training, and 8 weeks of drill sergeant school, basically I came out as a DI. But some of the interesting things were some of the things that I got to do in the military, and some of the great people that you get to interface with, and some of the things that these folks actually do. Somebody made a comment once about a person in the military basically signs a blank check up to and including their life for the citizens of this country. I'm hoping that we haven't missed that someplace along the line, that the citizenry of the United States still has that enthusiasm for the military. And Veterans Day is coming up on Wednesday, I guess, of this week. And I see that there's a movement out there that a lot of the restaurants are starting to give free meals to the veterans and things like that, where 20 or 30 years ago, you never heard a peep. It was like, we don't, there's these folks, they come home, they just kind of disappear into the fabric, and you never hear from them again. But, there are folks out there that have dedicated their lives to making sure this United States is protected. And I just want to give a yahoo for all the veterans that are out there, because I know, having gone through it, what these folks have to do from a training standpoint and a day-to-day work basis. And they work hard for very little pay, by the way.
I want to just share with the viewers out there, it was a very gracious, and more importantly, it was a very celebratory outing that we had yesterday with the Veterans Day. Phil Randazzo, way to go. Great job. And all the veterans that came out, thank you for your service, including yourself, Gary.
You're welcome.
But we had, more importantly, a reflection on the veterans and what it meant to serve the country, but also us as citizens to serve the veterans. And it's spot on what you're saying. There was veterans there from the past. There was families there of the deceased veterans, just to show a little kindness and courtesy to those individuals that keep the country free. Not asking too much. And you're right. You sign on that if you come home and you're not the same person, get me some help. If you sign on and you didn't make it home, make sure you help my family. So there was a gentleman I brought from the State House. His name is Rob Price. He came in from the Veteran Services. He also served 28 years, and he brought with him a bunch of cards and said to the veterans, if I can do anything for you at the state level or at the federal level, feel free to use me and what my knowledge is to help you and your families. There was veteran booklets available, and I gave some certificates just to say, hey, thanks, guys. It's not nothing but a piece of paper, but it's a recognition of just being, being a really a leader and a soldier to make sure that we're secure here in our homes. So thank the veterans, and thank you again, Gary.
You're welcome. One of the things that I think, is there anything that we could do to get him back here and maybe do some kind of an event?
You know what, Gary? We talked yesterday, and we've been talking. He said PD'd be more than happy to do what's called a Veterans Service and Benefits Fair.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a Veterans Service and Benefits Fair that we would have and host in the entire 36. We would literally send out a mailer, and that's what I'll do.
Oh, wow.
I want to get it after the first of the year, after the holidays, and give time then to reflect in the wintertime. January, February is a little slow. We'll have a Veterans Service and Benefit Affairs. We'll coordinate it with Phil Randazzo, our Veterans Coordinator here in Shelby. And we'll do something to go ahead and have Rob Price here not only bring his expertise and knowledge, but also bring his go-to kind of experience for the federal level, which you don't get anything but recordings most of the time. Bob knows people there. And then at the state level, bring the veterans together so that we have, and we do have a good liaison here in Macomb County, but we are kind of swamped because we have a lot of veterans here in this county. And we'll bring at least those veterans that served or the spouses of the veterans that served, if they're no longer here, information and or solutions that they can take away. And that's what we're all about here.
Good. So
okay.
Maybe we can get the VFW or somebody engaged in this?
I'm hoping that VFW, and if it gets too big, then we'll have to take it to one of the township halls. But VFW would be the appropriate place, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Stay tuned.
Well, that's good.
We'll get that date for everybody.
Story at 11, right? Education.
Yeah.
I got, and we're probably going to run out of time in this segment, but I got the Source newspaper here, and it talks about state releases new M-STEP exam scores. So back when my kids were in school, they had a different test. It was called a MEEP test, and all the kids would go crazy when, it's MEEP testing time. But now we've got a new test, and I read this article, and I have some questions about it because it says, and these are the words, half of Michigan's third grade students demonstrated proficiency in English, the only level in which at least half of those tested made the grade. That's 50% made it, and the other 50 didn't. And 50% was the best score out of all the grades for all the subject matter. What's going on?
Well, I can tell you this. Don't lay blame just so quick. Don't rush to justice on the teachers.
Okay.
Explain why. Back when you and I were growing up, parents took a initiative of reading to their child.
For sure.
Today, the child's on the internet. The child has a cell phone in his or her hand, the television. There is so many contraptions and gadgets that take away from the learning process of just sitting down and reading. Parents used to read to their children at night, spending that time. And if you look at from kindergarten to first grade, there's some reading going on for those that have already picked up. But beyond that, first to third grade, if they're not reading by third grade, why are they moving these children forward instead of getting some help? So part of this bill in this package that just was signed by the governor, no, I don't like the whole thing. I didn't like the fact that there was a retention part that kept those children back, and that's not going to happen for 4 years. So there's not going to be one child held back for 4 years. But in addition, I didn't like the fact that it didn't have in there carve-outs for MISD students, for children with special needs, or dyslexic children. Let's take that all out of the equation, and that's where we got to. We finally got all that out of the way, and then it came down to the reading coaches. The reading coaches were necessary because with scores like that, and I'm not saying the M-STEP's a good test. Let's not critique anything. Let's stop pointing the fingers. Let's do something about it because those are going to be the most talented, educated students that we're going to have to take care of us and the viewers out there, physical, financial, mental states when we get older. So we'd hope that they'll be able to read.
God, I hope so. Let's. We're going to put a pin in this one. We'll come back to this when we start the third segment. So we'll take a short break, and we'll be back in a second.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Welcome back. I'm still Gary Kopp, and I'm still here with Pete Lucido. Pete, let's continue on, and we'll wrap up this discussion on education. So one of the things that I noticed that there was a bill, a House Bill 4822, passed the House, and what it's got something to do with retention. And I think what that means is that if a student does not meet some set of minimum standards, probably defined by the state now, they will not be promoted into the next grade. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you know what? Again, if you take out all the carve-out exceptions, that we talked about before we went to break, which was dyslexic, special need, students that have immediate needs that the MISD thought and alluded to. Then you have to look at and identify if we have reading coaches, they're called, and getting the help from kindergarten all the way up to third grade. If their reading isn't proficient and they can't pass an exam, why are we advancing them into fourth and fifth and sixth? We had students testify as to, I graduated high school and I didn't know how to read. We did. It was sad. But I do know this. I do know this. The retention I didn't like, but it still wasn't going to go through. It was going to pass anyways, but I gave it a 4-year. So after 3 years, we can look to see if this program's working. If it's not working in 3 years and we're not having better results, then stop wasting the money, can the program, find another alternative. But one more thing this bill had, which we didn't talk about, reading as a second language, or English as a second language to the students we have, even in the Utica Community Schools. Explain why. Over 50% have an English as a second language. Now, you may think this is odd, but we have a melting pot here in our Utica Community Schools from all different walks of life and places around the world. So the teachers are not only dealing with obstacles of second languages, and meaning English is a second to the first language that they learn, but also the fact that if the parents aren't engaging with their child at home, teaching them how to read, it's a double whammy. And the teachers are having a large hill to climb, and it's very challenging for the administration and the superintendent.
Does that have anything to do with some of these low test grades?
I think it does. I truly believe that some of the barrier is, if you're dealing with English as a second language, how are you going to read a first language on the M-step? So, I mean, it's a very challenging posture that we're going to deal with in the next 3 to 4 years, and I think everybody's got to come together to make it all happen, because otherwise, we're just not doing any benefit for the kids.
So is there a sunset clause in this thing that says after 3 years or 3 or 4 years?
It's a 4-year before they can start retaining. So it's 4 years from the time the bill goes into effect. And nothing's going to happen about retaining any students, but we do know one thing. If you've got past performance and it shows that there is validity of improvement, this is good. But if it shows no improvement, scrap the program, because it's costing the taxpayers money for something they're not getting the benefit of.
So just, I don't really understand the retention part. I get the retention part, but in 4 years, so does that mean that any student in any grade that doesn't meet the minimum requirements will be held back, or is it just in specific grades?
Third grade.
Just third grade?
Third grade. By then, we'll know whether or not they're making the improvement. Which, you know, it's something that needs to be done, because otherwise we're not doing what we need to do in our education.
Yeah, for sure.
And really the challenges is, again, English as a second language.
And there was an interesting quote in here, and it says that the state needs high standards and rigorous assessments to become a top 10 state in the 21st century. Now, if all they're doing is changing the testing requirements but not necessarily improving the education, we really haven't done anything except we've set our expectations up here, and we haven't really moved the needle in terms of what we're teaching these kids.
Gary, that's very important what you just brought out. The needle's got to be moved, but also the educational processing has to go with it. The reality is that teachers here, and I do too as a legislator, want. And I always tell everybody, here's a piece of paper, here's a pen, write down how you would change it so I can see it. I don't want a finger point anymore. If the student's not reading and second language is in the bill, that English is a second language, and we're carving out all the exceptions for MISD, for dyslexic, for special needs, and we also have no retention in the first 4 years, this was the absolute best you're going to see. If there's a teacher, or if there's an administrator, or if there's a superintendent out there that says, we could do better this way, bring it on. Here's why. I don't have anything in front of me other than listening to all of those groups, teachers, administrators, and superintendent, to work with. But at the end of the day, if you still feel challenged with it, put it in writing to me so I can look at how it is you plan on solving the problem, because this is the best I could do.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, I see some benefits to this program too, because not only is it going to give you an evaluation of the students, but it'll give you an evaluation on the teaching process, the school, the administrators, and even the school system. So basically, you'll be able to track this whole thing to see who's doing the best and who's not doing so hot.
One thing I couldn't do, and it's because the law won't allow it, I can't legislate parents to engage with their children to read.
Yeah.
So the bottom line, the closing argument in the case is, let the children at least get the benefit from the father and the mother, or a brother and sister reading to them.
Yeah, good. All right, well, I think there's more to come on that, but I think you guys are on the right step, or at least the right track, I think. Energy.
Yeah.
Coal versus gas. We talked about this a little bit last time. I'm still confused about this 10% energy thing. All the thing you see on the TV about, oh, they're going to do this 10%, and you talked about like the school systems and some of the communities. What does this all mean?
Here's what it all means. This last week, we just passed from the House Committee on Energy, and that's where I serve, into the floor. It's going to go to the floor this next week or two. The energy package that was proposed, and the governor said we have so much time to make the changes pursuant to the EPA that came down from Washington. 10% is a choice. 10% is a choice that anybody can sit in the queue, and that's like a line, to get 10% on competitive bidding and pricing for energy. DTE at one time was fully regulated in that they own the entire market. When other providers came in and other resellers came in, they gave you a choice. And that choice, it was legislated that 10% was the most we were going to get for individuals that keep it, in my opinion, competitive market realization,
So
which
you're
means
creating competition.
you are.
Okay.
As a result, reliable was the big argument DTE made, and somewhat they've been the greatest partner we could have had because they built the plants, they have skin in the game, they're here in Michigan, they give jobs, all those things, and they also provide benefits back to the community. My old discussion, though, was to keep those other companies that also employ people. We should have, because in our little town here, 36th District, Utica Community Schools saves millions of dollars every year for choice. Our government buildings that Mark Hackle has as the executive, there's choice there too, and they save millions. And the last one is Macomb Community College, $500,000 a year they save in choice.
Wow.
So if that's the carve out, ultimately that's us, the taxpayers, that are actually benefiting because we can pay less in our taxes, and we get just as good a service, and we get just as good, but we get a better price. So here's the realization. They wouldn't be in the queue, and they wouldn't take the 10% if they didn't get the benefits that they have and the savings to the customer, which is the taxpayers.
So there's all this advertising that they're doing about, oh my God, and they're going to let somebody else is going to run your electricity and all that other stuff for you. That's really a big hype.
It's propaganda.
Propaganda.
It's also people that actually want to stir the pot instead of stir a solution.
Stir a solution. There you go. All right, Pete, we're out of time again. And I still think we might have to make this an hour long because we keep running out of time instead of running out of stuff to talk about. So
don't forget identity theft.
Identity theft, that's right. Coming up, make sure you don't get your identity stolen. I'm Gary Kopp. I'm here with Pete Lucido, and this is the end of Lucido 14. Stay tuned for number 15, coming to a house near you.